New Delhi-Jorhat plane crash. November 4, 1977. Tupolev Tu-124 V643 Pushpak Radh, Air HQ VIP Squadron. Squadron leader Cyriac Mathew 9518 FP. Unsung brave warrior of India. Mathew Cyriac is a member of Vadakkekara family at Kappumthala, Kuravilangad in the district of Kottayam, Kerala State, South India. His father, Mr.V.G.Cyriac, belonged to the Indian Administrative Cadre and served as the first Secretary of Revenue Land Board before retiring in 1967. His mother was Mrs.Thankamma of the Thottassery family. His paternal grandfather, V.C. George, was honored with the title Chevalier. Mathew was born on December 3, 1942, in a family of 8 siblings, 4 sons and 4 daughters. He had his primary schooling at the lower primary school at Thottassery, Alapi, and joined the MD High School at Kottayam. Later, he joined the Cotton Hill School and Model School at Thiruvananthapuram, the capital of Travancore State. His father had to shift his residence whenever he was transferred from one place to another. He was religiously minded from a young age, and naturally he became an altar boy and was a member of the Little Flower Mission League. He was also active in sports and games. He joined the National Cadet Corps and was also a member of the Rifle Club and got training in shooting too. In sum, we may call him an all-rounder. In 1959, he completed his high school education passing out from Model School. He did his pre-degree and BSc from Mar Ivanis College, Thiruvananthapuram. He was an athlete of considerable skill and stamina and was a swimmer and football player. Then he joined the flying school established by Colonel Godavarma Raja. He established his name as a good flyer. All these achievements and a readiness to undertake any responsibility, together with his courteous demeanor, made him a darling of all who knew him. His light military training through NCC, combined with the flying experience and shooting practice at Rifle Club, prompted him to join the army. Many tried to dissuade him from joining the military, but he was adamant about his choice. His first attempt to join the army ended in failure. His application was rejected. Then he tries to join the Air Force and he was selected a pilot officer. He had a strong faith in God and the protection of his guardian angel. He got training at Coimbatore, Patiala, Allahabad and Jodhpur and was absorbed in the Air Force. In course of time, he became a squadron leader. Soon, Mathew was able to fly non-stop for 8 hours. His extraordinary powers of observation, discipline, and presence of mind in crisis landed him the responsibility to pilot VIPs. Among the few who were selected to fly the President and Prime Minister, Mathew Cyriac Vadakkekara was. He used to fly Mrs. Indira Gandhi. A special squadron had been formed in 1947 with Palam Air Force Station as its headquarters. This was for handling VIP transport. In the 70s, highly qualified officers from the Air Force managed this squadron. At this time, Morarji Desai was the Prime Minister of India. There was an election in the state of Assam. A 6-day program was planned for the Prime Minister. The aircraft named Tupolev Tu-124 was selected for the Prime Minister's journey. It was a double-engine plane. There were 3 of them with the tail numbers V642, V643 and V644. The Indian Air Force used these 3 planes. They received excellent maintenance and high-ranking crew. Now, some technical details. The afternoons were not fit for flying in the northeast. The weather was unpredictable and light was at best insufficient. The flight was to land at Jorhat Airport, where landing was always difficult. but the Prime Minister's office was not ready to take a no for the program. For night landing in those days, electric flyer path was not available. Gooseneck flyers were used in those days. Gooseneck flyers were really metal containers with kerosene. There was a wick provided for the lighting it. These were deployed at the side of the runways. The pilot had to take the plane in between these flyers. It was common practice in the 70s to have no flights in the evenings or night. Flights could be safely handled in the daylight. So a special crew of flight engineers, navigators and pilots was chosen for the flight to Jorhat. Wing Commander Clarence Joseph de Lima led the crew of Tu-124V643. He had the Master Clean A grade certificate as an all-weather flyer and had 3,254 hours of flight experience. He was trained abroad as well as in India. Squadron leader Mathew Cyriac was his co-pilot and Wing Commander Jogendra Singh was the navigator. Squadron leader V.V.S. Shankar was flight engineer. Flight Lieutenant O.P. Arora was the signaller. There was trainee flight engineer in the crew, but he was not accommodated in the cockpit but seated with the passengers. The Prime Minister and team boarded the flight at 5 p.m. Morarji Desai was accompanied by his son Kandilal Desai, Intelligence Bureau Director John Lobo, P.K. Tungon, Chief Minister of Arunachal Pradesh, M.N. Jake, who was in charge of PM Secretary, Narayanan Desai, General Secretary of National People's Committee, Govindagutti of All India Radio and N.V.R. Swami of Samachar newspaper. The flight landed at Jorhat airfield. The weather was inclement. Tu-124 was secured with an instrument landing system. The field was lighted with gooseneck flares. The inclement weather and its unpredictability had been cited to try to persuade the Prime Minister's office to cancel the flight by none other than the Chief Minister Tungon of Arunachal Pradesh. There were political convulsions in the election time. There was a late night rally to be addressed by the Prime Minister at Jorhat. The PM's office took the decision to go ahead with the plan to fly. They believed that the highly qualified crew could handle any situation. The forces of nature are overwhelming. When human courage and strength dash against sheer force of nature, it wins and humans lose. Discretion is the better part of valor. Here the overwhelming force came in the form of thick clouds that simply shut all vision out. De Lima could not connect the plane with the runway. He spent time above the field to secure a landing, but strong wind began to buffet the plane even in the higher altitude. To divert the plane to another field was also not possible due to darkness and clouds. The pilot and co-pilot could not put in order two altimeters for each of them. There was no go. The passengers had fastened the seat belts and were waiting to get out of the plane. But then the plane moved from left to right. The luggage fell off the racks. The lights failed. The plane shuddered and soon was on the ground. Again it moved left and right. Someone shouted coarsely to get out of the plane. The passengers scrambled out into the muddy field. The Prime Minister escaped with very minor injuries. P.K. Tungon, P.K. Ravindran, Stuart Swami were hurt but not fatally. Those on either side of the fuselage were more seriously hurt. The confidence in the crew was not misplaced. The plane had hit the tall trees surrounding the airstrip. The crew knew that they had the heavy responsibility to save the lives of the VIP passengers. They had been in trouble due to change in weather, lack of lighting, Strong wind, dark clouds, and failure of altimeters. Their nose landed the plane in the marshes nearby and saved the passengers, and they courted the inevitable end. They made sure that the passengers were safe. They had saved the Prime Minister and his colleagues. Their lives were sacrificed for them. The sad truth is their names remain unsung and unheard among the public. Their bodies perished in the Brahmaputra Valley in Assam. The nation honored the flight engineer P.K. Ravindran and Corporal K.N. Ubodhaya with Shaurya Chakra. That was in 1979. But the others, the names DELHI-Ma and Mathew Cyriac Vadakkekara and other great warriors cannot be found among the honored heroes of Indian Air Force. Their sacrifice remains unsung. If only they had remained alive and had escaped the death which they had courted to save others, they would have achieved much. They ought to have been honored posthumously, but that was not to be. But the villagers of Taklagaon think differently. For them, giving up one's life for others is a virtuous deed. Saving others is honorable. Despite the absence of any memorial, the villagers gather there on November 4 to pray for them and offer puja. 45 years have glided away since the accident. Mathew Cyriac was survived by his wife Catherine and their only daughter Ruba. Now she is a mother and a teacher. Her husband, late Mr. Abraham Mathew Plavelil, was an engineer. They have 3 children: Mathew P. Abraham, Teresa Abraham, and Maria Abraham. They and their mother Ruba live at Ernakulam. The motto of Indian Air Force has been taken from 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, has this message: Napasparsham Diptam. Touch the sky with glory. Let us bid adieu to the heroes. Wing Commander Clarence de Lima, Wing Commander Jogendra Singh, Squadron Leader Cyriac Mathew, Squadron Leader V.V.S. Shankar, Flight Lieutenant O.P. Arora. They are in heaven, living in glory. God bless. Mathew Cyriac used to speak to his paternal uncle, Father Joseph Vadakkekara. When I soar in the sky in an aeroplane, I am closer to heaven and God. It is quicker to reach heaven from there. John Kurian Vadakkekara, JKV Image Programs.